Welcome to the Worth Listening podcast, where we focus on having positive and productive conversations around money. I'm your host, Lauren, a 4-time Olympian and certified financial planner. On this show, my guests share their money stories. Everyone has a unique story and experiences both wins and losses when it comes to money. My intent is to give listeners something they can relate to, something that builds their courage to be open and take control of their own money story. When I'm not creating a great show for my listeners, I'm running my company, Worth Winning, where I help individuals and families organize their finances. Check us out at worth-winning.com. All right, now on with the show. How are your 2019 goals coming along? Do you have your plan in place? If you don't, or if you're feeling like things are already starting to slip, it might be time to ask for some help laying the foundation of financial success. You can learn more at worth-winning.com. Today, I'm excited to have Matt LeBris here to share his money memoir with us. Matt has been an entrepreneur since he was 12 years old, when he started selling his mother's groceries from his front porch. Yes, you're going to want to hear the rest of that story. Growing up in New York City, he picked up the hustler spirit and has been working hard ever since. Matt is currently an entrepreneur, a speaker, and a branding expert. Now, while he tends to be more private about the success of his life, he does use his failures and his struggles to share with others the experiences he's had along the way, hoping to encourage and motivate them. Today, Matt shares both high and low points of his financial story, along with the advice for anyone who's struggling with failure. Let's listen to Matt as he shares his money memoir with us. Matt, thanks so much for joining us today.
Of course. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
I just told everyone a little bit about what you're up to now, but every story has an introduction. So tell us a little bit about where it all got started for you.
Sheesh, where do I start? I mean, let's go back to day one, October 7th, 1992, the day I was born. No, but seriously, life got started for me in regards to finding my passion, my mission not too long ago at 26 years old. I would say it was probably 2 years ago where I started to feel fulfillment and passion for what I'm currently doing now. But what I like to tell people, what I like to kick it off, I don't like to talk about the highlight reel. I like to talk about the blooper reel, the shit that happened that really shaped me into the individual that I've become today. And what I would say is I have 2 black belts, one in success and one in failure. And it's the one in failure that really shaped me and who I became. And those failures range from seeing my bank account dwindle down to nearly zero, failing out of college, getting kicked out of 2 high schools, losing my dream of playing professional sports at 17 years old. The list goes on. Failures are what shaped me.
I completely believe that failure is what shapes people. So it's really about this idea that what doesn't kill you doesn't make you stronger. And it sounds like you've been through a lot. So let's go backwards a little bit and talk about like where you're from, what kind of money things you saw growing up, what kind of environment it was that started to shape these setups that caused these failures that eventually led to your success.
Yeah, for sure. So to give you those details, born and raised in New York, I'm very fortunate to be here. I'm very proud to be a New Yorker. In regards to money situation, my family's from the middle class, right? As much as we were middle class, my mom was old school Italian and still was a coupon cutter. Like I definitely was brought up in a household that was definitely money conscious. And I'm very fortunate that both my parents had careers and still do have careers, right? They're still grinding, which is amazing to see because a lot of their work ethic is what rubbed off on me and where I get my work ethic from. So I'm grateful for that. My father was in IT or still is in IT, and my mother was a VP of one of the most prestigious banks in the world. So it was really cool to have that upbringing. But at the same time, like we struggled too, right? My parents were divorced. Going through a divorce in America costs quite a bit of, of money. So, like we struggled, but I went to private school my whole life. But at the same time, my younger sister went to public school her whole life. There was definitely that trade-off there. It seems like me being the older one, I got the benefit of being able to go to private school. Not saying public school is bad, because here in New York and all throughout the country, public schools are absolutely amazing. But yeah, that's what it was.
So being in the private school environment, but kind of classifying yourself as like middle income or middle class, was there a time that you saw something different about you versus the other children that were attending the school? Or do you think everybody was of similar economic background?
So for the most part, we were all from very similar economic backgrounds. It was beautiful, right? Because it was a Catholic elementary school, Catholic high school. There was a mix of everyone, that it wasn't just white people. It was black, white, Spanish, Asian, whatever, everyone. It was so mixed and it was so beautiful. And there were obviously a couple people you could tell had a little bit more than the other ones. And then you could definitely tell there were people that had less. But at the end of the day, we accepted each other for who we were.
I think one of the biggest advantages you have is in New York, it is a melting pot of people. The diversity is just built in. You don't have to really create diversity in New York City. And so that probably did quite a bit to kind of create the environment that you saw. And just like you said, it's like, it was just people. It was just other kids attending the school with me. Let's talk a little bit about how you earned money. So at what age do you remember having your first job? And tell us about some of the different hustles you've done over the course of your lifetime.
So I'm going to keep it so real with you. People laugh when I tell this story, but I swear it's true. At 12 years old, I started my first business, literally 12 years old, and it was actually a restaurant. Now, when people hear you started a restaurant at 12 years old, now hear me out. I was selling my mother's groceries on my front porch. And it was me and a neighbor. We were selling our mother's groceries and we had no overhead costs. So everything was profit.
But you got the beat down of a lifetime.
Of course. This restaurant was only open a week. This restaurant was only open a week, and we definitely closed down when we started to run low. But at the end of the day, that's where I kind of caught the entrepreneurial bug, all jokes aside. And I realized that I wanted to be able to create my own future. And I'm very big on that Peter Drucker quote. The best way to predict the future is to create it. So that's kind of where I started to catch that hustle from. And obviously the hustle fills the New York streets. It's in the air here. Everyone's a hustler over here. My first job was probably not until 17 years old. I hate to say that I was spoiled, but I mean, I kind of was, right? And it definitely impacted the way my parents lived their life because they were sacrificing their money or their income to buy me a video game when I wanted a video game. Sometimes I had to throw a temper tantrum to get it, but that's just me keeping it real, right? 17 years old, I started my first job. I think that was at Party City. It was a seasonal job during Halloween, and I was a freshman in college at this point. And what that led to was me finding that I had a love for money even more. And from there, at 17 years old, I started my first business as well, my real first business.
What was that?
So this was within the nightlife industry, and what it turned into, what it flourished into was absolutely amazing. And it had me working with the likes of 50 Cent and Fetty Wap and Lloyd Banks, Jadakiss, Ja Rule, Fat Joe, the list goes on. That was really amazing, and that lasted from 17 to 24 years old. But at the same time, there was also a lot of financial struggle and a financial learning from failures and things of that nature through this process.
All right, let's talk about some of those struggles and some of those failures, because I know one of the things that happens when you go to college is usually like, is somebody paying for college, or do I got to take out these student loans? Am I getting scholarships, grants? So you have the expense of the actual college. It sounds like you said you were working. So were you working to pay for college? Did you take out student loans? Talk about some of those struggles that you had.
So I did not take out student loans, but with that said, I went to a City University of New York. This is my first time going to a public institution. And luckily, the City University of New York's here. Honestly, we're blessed with education that's affordable for a lot of people. And for those that might not find it to be affordable, they get help. I was fortunate enough that my father was actually paying for it. I think it was only about $2,000 a semester. So even if you were working, you were able to pay for it with relative ease. So I actually wasn't working to pay for college at this point in my life, but I did after I failed out of college. That was the grind. The grind was to stack as much money as I possibly could.
All right. So I heard a fail word in there as it failed out of college. So
Yeah.
we're talking about the different failures. So kind of walk us through like what happened there and even like the scenarios that might have been playing part. Like you said, there was a lot of different things going on.
So this is where it gets juicy. So I was making a lot of money for someone that's 18, 19 years old. At one point, I think I was working 5 jobs when I actually failed out of college. But the reason I failed out of college was, one, because I did not know what I wanted to do with my life after high school. I wanted to play professional baseball. I wouldn't have made the NBA, but I loved playing basketball as well. I could have went D2, played both, or played D1 baseball and forgot about basketball. But at the end of the day, I tore my labrum in my shoulder my senior year of high school, lost every single scholarship that I had. Any college that I was talking to didn't want to talk to me after that. So I went to school to become a gym teacher. I don't know why I chose that. And by all means, gym teachers are very much so a necessity in this world, but that wasn't my passion. And between a mix of not being passionate about what I was studying and falling in love with making money, which was a failure in itself. It caused me to fail out of college. Like I mentioned earlier in the show, I went to private school my whole life. I was never able to cut a class. And now in college, I was able to because no one was calling mommy and daddy and saying, hey, your son's not here today. So I got a little trigger happy with that. And I was cutting left and right. And next thing you know, I failed out of college.
You said you had 5 jobs at the point that you left college. So you were working pretty much your whole way through college. You said you got this job when you were 17, dealing with the nightlife. What were you thinking about organizing your finances at that time? Did you know anything about how to create a budget, or what were you getting money for in your mind?
I'm going to keep it real. I went to the school of hard knocks, right? I mean, I'm not saying I was raised on the streets, but I had a taste of the streets. I think everyone that's in New York can get a taste of the streets relatively easy here. So I was very fortunate to align myself within the nightlife industry. I was aligned with a lot of mentors, and these are individuals that are older than me, and I'm seeing them driving the Mercedes Benzes of the world and wearing the Rolexes. And I'm like, yo, I'm literally 5-6 years younger than you guys. I want that lifestyle. How do I get it? So I started to ask questions. I never took advice from my parents when it came to money, when they were telling me to save my communion money, save my graduation money, save my confirmation money, save this money, my birthday money. Hell no. I bought video games. I bought sneakers. I bought Jordans. I bought clothes. I bought hats. I bought things that I wanted to flex with. But in regard to actually learning how to quote unquote budget, I never learned how to budget. I saved every single penny I made. I didn't eat out.
What were you saving for?
And I think I was just saving for my future, the general future.
Your parents were always telling you save, save, save. And you went through a phase where when they were telling you to save, 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 you were spending. But then you started getting your own, and it sounds like you started to save, save, save. So was it something that cut on in your brain subconsciously, even though when they were first telling you it, you kind of ignored it? But
yeah,
it sounds like you ended up catching the message anyway.
Of course, because there was an attachment to it. I was working for it. I was putting an effort for it. And I think that was the big switch right there. My birthday, there was no effort for getting birthday money. It came around. It comes around every year. There's no effort. I just got to stay alive. Knock on wood. That's going to come around. But seriously, it was that attachment to the effort that I was putting in to earn it that really made me change my view set on it. But obviously, there were challenges with that too. There's challenges with everything.
Yeah. So tell us about one financial mistake that you've made that kind of stands out to you.
Oh man, where do I even start with that one? There was a point in my life where I was saving, like I mentioned, a lot of money, thousands upon thousands of dollars. And for 3 years straight, I think I was 17, 18, 19, or 18, 19, 20. Forgive me for not knowing the correct age, but my bank account went up 10,000 to zero, 20,000 to zero, 30,000 to zero. 3 years straight. 3 years straight. Now, when people ask me what was the mistake I made, I can't really pinpoint that mistake. It just happened. Now, that mistake incorporated a lot of things, right? And it incorporated living beyond my financial resources, living a lifestyle that I really, really wanted, but I didn't necessarily have the means to afford. And yeah, I afforded it for some time, but then those funds ran out, right? That continued to happen. And it was a trend until I caught myself and I was like, listen, man, you got to buckle down.
All right. So what would you say to somebody who has recently made a big financial mistake about like how to rebound from that and they're not sure what to do?
I think it comes down to one, forgiveness, right? I think that's where you start, forgiveness, because I think we are all very, I don't want to say concerned with money. That's not the proper terminology here, but we do need money to survive. Let's be realistic, right? We all have bills. We all need to put food on the table. We all need to have shelter, whatever the case is there. We need to put clothes on our backs. So first of all, it comes down to forgiveness. Forgive yourself for making a mistake because it happens. That's a part of our journey. We all have different journeys. Just own it, right? And then I think what it comes down to is being in receivership. We need to be able to accept what we did and let's learn the lesson. And it's not like, don't put your head down and cry about it. Just say, all right, you know what happened. And that's way easier said than done. I'll make that point clear. It's way easier said than done. But be in receivership for the lesson that's in front of you because there's a reason that it happened and accept it.
I think it's really important to, like you said, hey, where did I go wrong here? And how can I move forward from that? If you don't do that and you just kind of wallow, you really have a hard time getting out of the rut. And the rut becomes kind of a longer, drawn out period of your life where things aren't going quite right. I also think that's why it's really important to have discussions. So can you talk a little bit about this idea of how you discuss money with people? Are the people in your circle open to discussing money? Is it kind of that taboo topic that nobody talks about? How do you go about having discussions with the people you care about as it pertains to money?
Yeah, I'm pretty open about it. The only thing I necessarily don't share with people is the amount of money I'm making. Currently, right now, I'll be very vulnerable. I'm not going through the best financial time in the world. I just quit my main source of income to pursue entrepreneurship again. So I just want to let people know that are listening, like life isn't always peaches and cream. There are definitely struggles, but I'm more open about my struggles than my wins. So right now, I tell people like I'm not doing the best I possibly can in regards to my finances, and I consistently pray for mercy to be shed upon me in that sense. But I'll always ask for advice when I see someone close to me doing well. For instance, one of my mentors, he helped me open a Roth IRA when I was 21 years old. That was one of the best things that I've ever done, but that wouldn't have came about if I didn't ask for the vehicle. If I didn't say, hey, how can I become better? How can I plan better? He would have never did it. So I think it comes down to just asking. Don't be shy.
Yeah. And one of our mottos on the Worth Listening podcast is it's not about the numbers, it's about the strategies. And that's exactly what you just described. It doesn't matter how much you make or how much you got in the bank account. It's about this idea of, hey, man, what are you doing to optimize your finances? And how can I be put on to that? Because the information is what's key. You've got to get the knowledge to even know that a Roth IRA is a thing and why you should be putting money in one. And simply having that discussion with somebody is where that ball gets rolling. So I think that's really good. So talk a little bit about how you're approaching your finances now. Is there a way that you're doing things differently than you were before, or from an organizational standpoint, like what's your approach?
Sheesh. I'm still trying to figure that out. I'm in a place right now where I left my job and I still have income coming in. It ain't much, it definitely ain't much. And I'm very open about that. But at the same time, when I do speaking gigs, I get paid for that. But that being said, they're also not as consistent as I would like for them to be and to make the living that I would like to make. It's growing pains. But in regards to my strategy and the way I'm organizing, it comes down to literally cutting my cost. I think that was the biggest start. Like I was paying $550 a month for a car. I don't have a $550 a month car anymore. That's long gone. Even when it comes down to my gym membership, little things, I don't eat out anymore. When my boys are like, oh, we're going here, we're going to chill, have fun. I'm sitting home drinking wine, like
Right.
It just comes down to making smarter decisions and knowing what you really need as opposed to what you really want. And I think that's where the real change happens.
I love it. I think that's a really good money hack too, is this idea of what do you need versus what do you want, and really being willing to cut back to go after your dreams. You didn't have to quit your job. You could have stayed where you were and kept plugging along where it was a little bit more stable, but something is pulling you in a different direction. And in order to be able to pursue that, you needed the time, but you've also got to figure out something financially. And you've decided that it's worth the choice that you make to pull back in other areas so that you can pursue this thing that you're going after. All right. So we've reached this area that I like to call the final sprint, where I ask you some rapid fire questions and you shoot some answers at me.
Let's do it.
Are you ready?
I am so ready.
You got $20 in your pocket right now. What do you spend it on?
Food. That was the first thing that came to my mind. I can't lie. I love eating food.
You're a New Yorker, so tell us something good to eat.
Oh, where do I start with that? There is so much good food to eat here in New York.
Where are you going with your $20 right now? What's that first place?
Being that it's only $20, I am going to a pizzeria called Rose's Pizzeria. It is phenomenal. And I'm going to eat good for $20, that's for sure. But
all right. Shout out to Rose's Pizzeria. Got to check it out next time in town. All right. Finish this sentence. That awkward financial moment when?
Your bank account hits zero.
Ooh, when the bank account hits zero. Nobody really knows that it hit zero, though. Like, it's just awkward for you.
Yeah. You want to know why? Because it becomes awkward when people think you're living a certain lifestyle and you kind of get exposed, right? People are very comfortable with you living that lifestyle, joining them in their lifestyle. And the next thing you know, you can't do it. And I can't necessarily say I got to that point where my bank account hit zero. But like I said, for 17, 18, 19 or 18, 19, 20, I got damn close to zero.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point about it can be awkward because you start to feel like an imposter. Like people think you're one thing and you're kind of living another, and then you kind of have this identity crisis. All right. So what is your worst money habit?
Eating out. I think food came to mind once you brought up that $20 question, eating out. And I really cut back. But I think that's potentially everyone's worst habit. If you could limit it to once a month, do it.
Right. All right. Tell me what your best money habit is.
Saving. I am an expert saver. I don't know how I figured out what works for me, but yeah, saving.
Worst advice you've ever received?
Worst advice I ever received? And this is supposed to be rapid. You got me thinking over here. Oh, man. I think it would be someone recently told me to overcalculate the moves I was making. And I'm all for taking the leap of faith and building the plane on the way down. I'm not one to overcalculate anything. So I think that would be the worst advice I've personally received recently.
If it doesn't fit the way that it's most authentic to you, then yeah, it's bad advice, right? So one final question. Can you share with us one thing that you would like to improve about your finances in the upcoming year?
Yeah, how much money I make.
All right. So what's the action item to help you reach that goal?
Optimize all my speaking engagements, landing 10 to 15 clients a month in regards to branding services and things of that nature. That's what I'm taking action on currently. I'm only in month 1, so I'm still trying to figure out what I'm doing is working, but it seems like it is. So I'm on the right path.
What kind of things do you speak about?
It definitely varies. I've spoken in regards to education. Like I said, I failed out of college, but at the same time, I went back to college and graduated with Dean's List honors.
Hey.
I talk about the blueprint to student success. I also talk a lot about my journey through life, mentioning a lot of the failures that we talked about today, which is probably the biggest one. It's my keynote. I've traveled the country speaking about that. There's other things that I do with corporations, such as leadership development. A lot of corporations reach out to me in regard to that. Passion planning and life mastery, a whole bunch of stuff. It's really cool.
Jack of all trades, various topics. Matt, thanks so much for being on the show. You definitely get a gold medal for finishing up the final sprint well. And then we kind of already started it, but you're standing on the podium now. You have this medal around your neck and it's your time to shine. So go ahead and shout yourself out a little bit more and tell us how we can find you and how else we can support you.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for having me on the show. I'm really big with showing gratitude, so I definitely appreciate the opportunity to be here speaking with you. I think I definitely owe you for that one. You could find me all over social media, just my name, MATT_LEBRIS on Twitter and Instagram. I am on LinkedIn and Facebook as well. It's just Matt LeBris. Website, mattlebris.com. I'm all over. You could find me wherever.
All right. I love it. Matt, thanks so much for being on the show.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
I hope you enjoyed listening to Matt share his money memoir. He brought up a couple of great points that I wanted to highlight. First is the importance of forgiving yourself when you make a mistake. Do not get hung up on your mistakes because it's never too late to change. The other thing is the importance of being able to separate your needs from your wants. When you're trying to get your spending under control, this is a very important first step. What do I actually need versus what do I want to do? Our word of the day today is receive. When Matt was talking about being able to forgive ourselves for our financial mistakes, he also shared the importance of being able to receive the lessons that we have coming our way. The key to being able to correct and move forward is being able to receive lessons and take ownership of our actions. I hope you enjoyed listening today. As always, if you have suggestions for guests, would like to share your own money memoir, or are interested in getting your finances organized, don't hesitate to reach out to us at worth-listening.com.